Dead Candy. Dedicated entertainment for the dead.
Spoiler alert, Slash's Paradise encourages viewers to watch these horror films before listening to our show. Danny and Lance will go through everything, including filmmaking, dialogue, characters, and even full scene breakdowns when we get excited. Enjoy the show.
Hello! You've reached Whoretown Video. After hours. For store hours, please press 1. For the horror movie recommendation of the week, please press 2. For the slash word of the night, please press 3. For all other recommend... You've selected the slash word of the night. Tonight's slash word is... burning.
Man, it's hot. It's hot as hell out there.
Yeah, very, very hot. It's almost like something's burning? Perhaps the burning. Welcome to Slash's Paradise. That's Danny and I am Lance. We are covering 1981's The Burning today.
It's on fire, Lance. It's on fire, and that's why I am sporting my fire shirt. Hellfire Club, ever heard? Obviously crossing IPs here, but yes, I am sporting something very hot and fiery because I love that we are talking about The Burning.
I'm wearing a Scarecrow shirt, so the opposite of fire, please. Funny enough, I actually just watched Joe Bob Briggs does Dark Knight of the Scarecrow today. So I'm kind of in a Scarecrow mood right now. But anyway, The Burning.
As opposed to any other time. It's like an alter ego.
Yeah. I'm a big Scarecrow guy here. Anyway, The Burning is, I guess, it's just got a cult following at this point is where we're going to put it. And we're going to cover it today. I don't want to like dive too far into it before we dive into it. So The Burning, I enjoy this movie. I watched it during a time when I was like educating myself on horror films and probably right when the cult for this one kind of started as well. It's like early 2000s, somewhere in there. How about you, Danny?
I honestly saw this for the first time, kind of like I mentioned the other day when we covered Host with a group, another couple. We watched this during the shutdown. This is the first time I watched this movie. I had no idea about it. I missed every sort of imagery. I missed it all. And I only became aware of it when it came to or was on Shudder. God bless Shudder, by the way. My goodness. Such a great streaming service for horror movies. But that was definitely one that I watched, and I was so not disappointed. I can tell you that obviously we're going to dive deep into it, and I will tell you exactly what I feel about this movie and what inspiration it may have pulled from. But I'm a fan. I don't care. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm a fan. And to expand on my story of how I first saw this, kids, Netflix used to send us DVDs if we paid a subscription price, and it was one of the DVDs I had to wait 2 days for to get in the mail. Yeah. Grandpa Lance, Grandpa Dead Candy here. Oh, that's where we're at. Okay,
wait, hold on. Do you know I was so envious on the people who pulled the trigger on the Netflix subscription that sent you the DVDs. We never went full send me the DVDs Netflix subscription in my family. We still were like, nah, we're gonna do Blockbuster. It just was like we were gonna help. I don't know. We were maybe traditionalists and stuff, but it's funny because when he's like, I wanted to support my local video store, and you talk about Blockbuster, and you're like, wait a minute, y'all are the ones that
Right.
that killed the video stores. Anyway, soapbox. But anyway,
Yeah.
we never went full in Netflix, send the DVDs to my house. I always wanted that.
It was such an easy thing because I was getting busier, you know what I mean? So it was like hard for me to go to the video store, have time to watch the movie in those 2 or 3 days, and then take it back. Netflix, you paid the subscription, you could send it back at any point basically once you were done with it, but you were just losing money by not having another movie shipped to you. So that's why it made sense. Plus Blockbuster wanted like an address and a bill and all this stuff to, I didn't have all that, so I couldn't sign up for Blockbuster when I was a kid.
You want too much from me, okay? Just
Truly.
I'm not trying to open a bank account. I'm really just trying to get my burning on. So
That's right.
So help me out.
That's what we're here to do today, is get our burning on. Let's get to business. We have a game that is a part of Slashers Paradise. You heard the slash word already, thanks to Horror Town Video, another part of Dead Candy and Slashers Paradise. Danny, tell them how slash word works.
I would love to, Lance. Slash word, for you wonderful listeners, is the Slashers Paradise version of the popular game Pathword, where the listener, are enjoying the episode as you normally do. But while you're enjoying it, and if you hear the slash word said by either Lance or myself, you get to take a drink. And it could be any drink, obviously. But we're here in paradise. It's good to kind of relax sometimes. So go ahead and make yourself an alcoholic beverage if you so choose. If not, all we ask is that you play along. When the slash word is said, take a drink and have fun playing slash word.
That's right. Another part of this show, we have a Pina Colada, which is our basic breakdown for the film. It's the Danny version of the film, basically. So Danny, go ahead and dive in. What is the burning?
The burning. Pina Colada. Here it comes. A prank gone wrong. A prank has gone wrong, and the victim of the prank, Cropsey, is horribly burned in this terrible idea. Fast forward, or fast adjacent to another area in which it is nearby where the original prank happened. And now there's a new group of counselors or kids at a camp who are just trying to enjoy their time, and they start being picked off one by one by a mysterious figure. Is it Cropsey exacting his revenge for the prank gone wrong that left him horribly burned? Did he even survive the prank to begin with? Is it someone in the camp? Who knows? We will find out in The Burning.
All right. Thank you very much, Danny. Basic breakdown for the film. It was released May 8th, 1981. Technically, it was kind of released in the New York area where the film was originally created, where the Cropsey legend comes from, which we'll get to. And then the wide release, I believe, was on May 22nd or 20th or something in there. So a couple weeks afterwards. This is a weird opening, and so is the breakdown, because the budget is somewhere between $500,000 and $1.5 million. The most reported is 1.5. Yeah, so if you look it up, you'll see that. But then there's like this weird information of 500K. There's a whole story to this. We're going to get to it. We've talked about these brothers before. Not Hollywood's favorite brothers anymore, but we'll get to that in 1 second. Box office is kind of the same story. So the box office is $707,770,000 box office, maybe. And I say maybe because they changed the name of the film a few times. There was like the Cropsey murder, the Cropsey maniac. There was all these different versions of the film because they were trying to trick people into watching it. So as far as we know, that's what the box office is for The Burning, but it might have made more money elsewhere. It was a weird time, I guess, for theatrical release and the way that this movie was made and the slasher era as it was really just kicking off. So another weird one. Okay, so let's see. Film stars Jason Alexander debuting his first film. Also, Fisher Stevens debuting in his first film. Holly Hunter debuting in her first film. Yeah, okay, let's go. Brian Becker. This is 1 year before one of our all-time favorite movies, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So right at the beginning. Leah Ayers, Carolyn Houlihan, Brian Matthews, and a bunch of other people. So the movie is written by a plethora of people, but it was mostly written by the Weinsteins. This is actually like their first film funded by their parents. Again, this is where it starts to get like kind of weird of like the budget. It's kind of like some rich kids getting some money and putting a movie together. Apparently they had written a script, submitted it. It got some hype around it. Then they turned it into a screenplay within a few weeks. Like everything started to turn on really fast and get this movie kind of made. So this is like such a weird production, a weird way to make a movie for the times. A lot of mystery around like how much actually went into the movie, how much the movie actually made. It was not reviewed very well. Even to the point where at the end of production they were considering making a sequel, and then the reviews came out and they said like we're just not going to do that. And so fortunately there was no sequel to this one, but that is the mysterious setup to this one. There's a lot of mystery to everything that made this film. So with that, I like it. It's it's an 80s slasher flick. It's on a budget. It went over budget, we think, maybe. But it's a good one. There is some shocking scenes that have been restored recently. It was again butchered back in the day, just like Friday the 13th. You're going to hear a lot of references to Friday the 13th because that's all that it was referenced back in the day with the reviews. 1980, Friday the 13th came out. 1981, Friday the 13th Part 2 came out. Burning came out in 81. So everyone was comparing The Burning to those two films, but The Burning had actually started production before Friday the 13th had started production. So it's this just whole weird backwards thing. Yeah. So campers, campy, let's go to camp and tell this urban legend, which we'll talk about in a minute as well.
Well, first, I did not know that this was based on any sort of urban legend. I thought Cropsey was an original character, and I should have known better, I suppose, giving too much credit to these pigs that made this dang movie. I didn't know that they could freaking write. I guess you could teach a pig to do anything. But besides that, obviously, folks, we mentioned this movie was made by the Weinsteins. I'm not going to sit here and try and get into what their whole story is for this movie. We're going to take the movie at face value. Going to talk about why it was and where it lies in the annals of slasher movie history, which is where I think it is safe to talk about. Speaking of, restorations and stuff like that, I think Shout Factory's put out something recently, either a 4K, if not Blu-ray version of this movie. I haven't picked it up, but I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I've told you, Lance. I'm shifting, man. For the lazy ass that I am, I have always wanted to have things in a one-stop shop, right? Give me my full digital library, and no mas, no fuss. I'm there, right?
Yeah.
I'm buying a lot more physical media, given what we are seeing in mergers and acquisitions. Are you into mergers and executions? No, mergers and acquisitions. Given
Same
what
thing.
we're seeing all over, yeah, isn't it crazy? What we're seeing all over the place is just like, I also love supporting companies that are involved in creating restoring a lot of these amazing works of art and these things that like there's definitely a fandom for him and niche. So I am starting to really dive deep and build up my physical media library just because I'm like, you never know when some weird dang merger is going to happen. It's going to be like, great, all those Lionsgate movies you bought, they're gone. You have to buy them again because now Paramount owns them or whatever. It may be the same company, honestly. But anyway, you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's kind of was happening. I think we're starting to get solid ground on some of the digital stuff and what you own. But what I don't like about this whole digital era is that they can change content at any point. I know Disney's done that a lot. So you can never see the original version of a movie unless you own the hard copy from that time. So that's something that I don't like changing history that much. I mean, sell the other version that people can have. Like one of my most prized possessions now is the first time that Halloween 2 went to Blu-ray on its own. They somehow left Mustafa Akkad off of the credits and they actually sent out a re-edition of it. But I have the first edition that does not have his name for some godforsaken reason. And they apologized and they sent an email out to everyone that bought one saying like, hey, we'll give you the correct version with Mustafa on it. But now I have that, it's kind of cool to have that part of history, and you can't just correct history and hope that everyone forgets about it. You got to learn from it, So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, are you one of the ones that owns the VHS where the priest that's doing the sermon in The Little Mermaid has a boner? Do you have that one? So I get it. What? No. But I think I have that one too, Lance. I might have to rummage through my stuff, but the comparison or the example I always look for is when The Exorcist was released in theaters and re-released in theaters, and it was the version you've never seen before. Imagine that it was like, nah, this is the version now, and you didn't.
Yeah.
Everything you saw from then on was like that version. So yeah, I totally get it, and I totally like the idea of buying a movie so that you can make sure that the integrity of the original. If extras are released later, thank you. Beautiful bonus, chefs. You know what? Fuck it, it's beautiful, Lil. But yeah, I hate that. I hate that they could go in and retroactively change something. Oh, did you notice that's crazy? We own your digital library anyway, so we're just gonna fix it. Bye.
I think that's the biggest bummer to me now is that things can be changed digitally. So I understand the hard copy thing. I'm just running out of space. Like I run a studio.
Oh my gosh,
like,
yes.
It's like I have no space for anything. So everything is becoming digital, unfortunately. Maybe eventually, I'll get back to kind of collecting again and buying some more physical copies and stuff. But you talked about the urban legend, and I want to talk about that, especially for some of the listeners and viewers that are just coming in. The Cropsey urban legend is from Staten Island, New York. It was a huge thing to terrorize kids and generations of kids. And the original legend goes that Cropsey was it's just like the classic camp story too. Cropsey was an escaped mental patient from a local institution. He had a hook for a hand, and he would kidnap children and drag them to the basement of the sanitarium that he escaped and murder them. He also wielded an axe. There's like every urban legend, it kind of you get more and more versions of it, but he's an axe wielding, hook-handed, insane asylum escapee that is hooking children, and it was meant to it just terrorized Staten Island kids, New York kids, and that legend just grew and grew and grew. I recently found out that there's like a real world Cropsey that kind of came out, and there's a whole backstory to that we won't get into, but maybe like if I can send that to like the Buried Sisters one day, we can do like a whole true crime on that, because it's a big conspiracy in New York, I guess, where they like think they caught the guy, but then there's not enough proof to say it was him. Now there's always missing children that they never found the bodies of. So okay, we're getting too real, but that is the basic urban legend of Cropsey. So when we get to the burning and the rewrites and all this kind of stuff, now he's a burned victim. He is the janitor, or he's the the groundskeeper of the camp of Camp Blackfoot.
Yes,
Right?
he's
Okay.
yeah, he's like the maintenance worker, right?
Right.
Okay, look, and I really, really, really want to make this point, and I'm so sorry, I really am. But what I want to say is that they, okay, sorry, they got a person who is Cropsey before he gets burned, and he looks unique. In that, have you seen the first Harry Potter? Have you seen? No, it's not even the first Harry Potter. It's Hagrid's brother in the Harry Potter franchise. I don't even know when he comes out, but his nose is kind of up, you know? It
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of has like
Okay.
I'm watching the movie, I'm watching The Burning, and I see the nose, and I'm like, is that person's nose? Or is it a prosthetic? If it was a prosthetic, it's amazing. But I've never personally seen anybody with that type of nose. So they got an interesting person to play Cropsey, is what I'm trying to say here. But as soon as I saw him in the bed while this prank is going to happen, as soon as I saw that happen, I was like, yeah, you're definitely making a character. I know who your intended character is based off the way this person looks. Does that make sense? It's kind of like the guy in the original Hills Have Eyes, right? You've seen him in everything, and I'm blanking on his name, but he's been in Devil's
Yeah.
Rejects. He's got a bald head. He's very unique looking, right? So I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, that's intentional. That was an intentional choice. When you see Cropsey, you're like, oh, okay, that's what that person looks like. Very, very interesting. That's all.
Very interesting. Well, yeah, I think I know what you're saying, where it's almost like he could have been just the killer from the start, just the way he looks.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
The actor's name is, I think, Lou David. Is that right? Lou David. I think he goes to like conventions and stuff still, if he's still around. Yeah. Lou David. Yeah.
Cropsey is Lou David. Yeah.
Cropsey. Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. Just the way he kind of looks. There's when the prank actually goes off too, these mean-spirited teen campers. One of my favorite parts of this is when, I don't know if it's Todd that sneaks in and does the whole prank. Todd is one of the main guys later on, but one of the kids that pranks them kind of like sneaks into the cabin where Cropsey is, and Cropsey just full on wakes up. I'm sorry, nobody sleeps fully clothed and like jumps out of bed, looks at you, and then rolls over as if they were asleep the whole time. I'm sorry, but that was just not in the realm of realistic to me.
This reenactment, sorry, audio listeners, this reenactment is solely for our video watchers. This reenactment is exactly what Lance is talking about. Pranker walks in, Cropsey is asleep, and very much out, right? And he's like, and he wakes up and he's like, huh? And he's like staring at the kid. He's looking at him.
Up.
He's launching.
He literally sits up and stares at the kid.
And then just like gets comfortable again and lays down and goes back to sleep. No, I'm sorry. Okay, that's all right. I'm probably not the best person to say this because I am apparently the heaviest sleeper God's ever created. On God's green earth, I am the heaviest sleeper, honestly. And if you wake me up, you better have a good reason. Apparently, these are the things I've been told. Is that if you wake me up, it's like World War III. If you wake me up, I'm like, oh, shit, who did it?
No. That's terrifying.
So, it is terrifying because like I'm not small, I'm a big guy, right? So poor Caitlin, I feel so bad for her if she like wakes me up because like something's going on. Let's say it's like I need to wake you up, but don't make a lot of noise because I hear something, and then we want to like make sure we don't let blow our cover. I ruin it right as soon as I wake up. So yes, the way he wakes up, Cropsey, he definitely sees what's going on, but yeah, they just they want us to believe that he goes right back to bed. No.
Yeah, I guess it was supposed to be like a setup scare, but it doesn't really like work. And then there's like a lot of weird synthetic hits on this to try to like punch the scare into you. This movie was made straight up like, oh, slashes are popular. This was based on, hey, we like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Michael Myers, Halloween just came out, 78. We got to get on the train as soon as we can because we know that this is going to end. So this was kind of a business decision movie. But there's just some things in there where you're like, I mean, just he's a very animated sleeper is all I'm going to say from there.
Before we continue on, Lance, before we get too deep into it, we know that Friday the 13th came out and they said we made this movie to be a Halloween but in the woods. They have gone on record to say that.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has said definitively. Admittedly, by myself, I have not looked that much into what the filmmakers have said about this movie and their inspiration and all that stuff. But if they want to try and get me to believe that this was some sort of an original movie before, or not inspired by anything else, I am not going to hear it. It's all horseshit. You cannot come out that close to Friday the 13th, which itself was a ripoff of Halloween. You cannot come out that close, have 9 out of the 10 things similar to Friday the 13th and not tell me that somebody ripped somebody off. I'm not saying who, I don't know who, but someone definitely was overhearing. It was this. They rented writing room A and the other ones were in writing room B and they didn't even know about it, but they could hear each other through the walls and they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. That's how it felt.
Apparently not, because The Burning was in production first and it was supposed to be based on the whole Cropsey legend anyway. So
okay,
I don't know. Of course, the Cropsey legend had nothing to do with a camp and all that. So I don't know, Danny. I don't know.
Lance, I have a hard time believing that on the account that it's bullshit. I mean, sure. No, I get it. I totally get it. It's just like maybe they heard the same thing because it's like it's woods, it's counselors, it's stalker, it's a camp, right? I said all that stuff. It's all too similar to like not be a coincidence, not just be a coincidence. Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
You understand. Take a drink. So we have Cropsey. We have a prank that goes wrong. The kids, these mean-spirited teenage boys, leave like the most realistic looking corpse head ever. I don't know, did they dig it up or I don't understand that. There's another similarity. If you go back and listen to Friday the 13th part 4, we talked about how Tommy Jarvis has like a closet full of like the best practical effects you've ever seen in your entire life. This kind of reminded me of that. Well, Tom Savini is a part of this film. He actually forewent Friday the 13th part 2 because he liked the script for The Burning. He did not understand the adult Jason and how that would make sense. So he did not take part in that film. He decided to come over and do The Burning. Interesting fact, he had about 4 to 5 days to do all of the effects that he did in this movie, and he did a pretty wonderful job, so much so that he was actually really proud and helped promote this film and went on the whole press tour and everything for it at that time.
So he made what when you see Cropsey in his burned form, that's obviously Tom. That sucks because we don't really get to see Cropsey in his burned form a lot. I know I'm jumping around, but it's a pretty striking and cool image,
Yeah.
I'll have similarities once we get to that part, I suppose, of other things that I think Cropsey reminded me of. But to your point of the prank, which is okay, I've done pranks before, I've set up jokes before, I've been like, oh, let's hide over here because we're gonna scare somebody before. These kids act like they came up with the hottest shit of a prank known to man. They're over here talking to each other like, are you in? Are you in? And apparently they all hate Cropsey. I'm like, what did Cropsey do? Did he sleep with y'all's mother or something? Like, y'all are like really hate him. And they're like, we're gonna get that son of a bitch. I'm like, okay, y'all are kids, relax. But yes, their idea was, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have this head, and it's like it reminded me of the poster of the movie Zombie.
Okay.
Yeah. There's like it's got a lot of like crud and stuff on it, like maybe still some more skin. It's like grime and muck and gore and all that crap. It's all still on it. It's very wet. But they get it in a box as if they just got it delivered, and every time he's reaching in, he's like, "You got the matches? I need the fucking matches. Give me the matches." Right? I'm like, he obviously baked him a cake or something. He just keeps on lighting it. It just doesn't make sense that a candle. I mean, I see then. Okay, for you all, what the prank is that skull is going to be placed next to Cropsey's bed. They're going to wake up. Cropsey's going to see it, and the match or the light, the fire aspect to it. It's in both eyes, right? Both eyes have candles in them.
Yeah, like the perfectly lit candle, which I guess was a part of that. It looks literally like a birthday cake candle and the two eyes.
Yeah.
So I think there's even maggots coming off of it, or worms or something like that.
Worms.
That's what I was like, did they dig this thing up? Like, I don't understand why it looks so good, especially coming from that time.
Well, because Tom did it. It just looks like they said, if we're gonna go in, let's get the guy. Was Tom Savini already the guy that was world renowned at that point, right? He had already made a definite name for himself.
Yeah, he's done a couple movies by this point. Again, he was such a name that he was part of the press packet for The Burning. He was so proud of his work in The Burning that he's like, this is my work, this is my project. But again, he only did most of his work within 4 days. So Cropsey, again, you don't see him much, but it's basically a mask. And even he kind of says, like, even though I did all my research, it's more of a melted face than it is like a burnt face. But the first time that we see even a glimpse of Cropsey is him at the hospital, in the hospital scene. And we've got this like nurse bringing you want to be a doctor and all this kind of stuff. And they bring him in they bring this doctor in to see this in the burnt victims unit. Like, so Cropsey does survive the prank. Basically, he kicks over the candle skull or whatever the hell that thing was. And he burns and he falls through the woods, and the kids are a little traumatized over it. Skip to the hospital scene. We're in the burnt victims unit, and you see this nurse, I think he's just a nurse or whatever. He's like taking this doctor over to see Cropsey. Like, this is going to change your life. You're never going to see anything like this ever again. And the arm that comes out is just so chewed up and like disgustingly burnt. Like, it's just like, ooh, whatever's in this burnt tent thing is terrifying. I'm scared of whatever's in there, but we don't see enough of it. We just see an arm come out.
I think it's super hilarious that you have this orderly that's just bullying this doctor around the hospital to be like, man, you ain't never seen anything like this before. You want to be a doctor? Then you got to get into the thick. You got to get into the shit, man. You got to look and see these burned victims. And if you can see that, you can do anything. I'm like, who the fuck said? I just went to medical school. I'm a doctor. I don't need to pass an initiation from some random ass orderly who's just like, you want to know? I'm the one that knows. You don't know. I know. And I'm just like, this is so funny. But really quick, one more thing I'll say about the prank is that, yes, he's the mechanical or the tech guy, not the tech guy, but he's the maintenance dude on the camp. Is he just sleeping with a full tank of gasoline next to his bed?
Oh, yeah,
I just thought that was so conveniently. It was so conveniently placed at this like huge tank of gasoline. It's like, okay, oops, oh, the skull fell over. There's flames all over me. Oops, let me just put that out. Oh, got a huge tank of gasoline. Better. And I don't know why he's lisping through this whole thing.
Why do you lisp now? Why is that your thing? You did it on the last episode too.
What thing? No, it's just I'm trying to highlight the utter ridiculousness of that moment. So that's
fair.
That comes through when it's just like, oh, I'm bungling this whole thing. It's just cartoony. That's what I'm trying to do. So when that happens and the gasoline tips over, I'm like, I don't know, man. If that gasoline tank was that close to my bed, I don't think I would get a good night's sleep. And you see Cropsey's nose, he knows what's going on. He could smell everything. I'm just like, there's no way that tank of gasoline is right there and you are just sleeping through it. I get like a drop of gas on my boot that I wore in like 2008 and it still smells in my closet. So I'm just saying that it just is unrealistic, but it was definitely necessary so that Cropsey could be lit the fuck up and he can just do a very impressive burn walk, by the way. Kudos to the stunt man, comes out and stuff. But just like, we all learned to stop, drop, and roll. And it's like, I guess it's a catch-22. We know what the thing is to do to put out this fires to stop, drop, and roll, but it's also a movie. So we want to show the impressive stunt burn walk. So we're kind of in between. But yes, I just wanted to mention that the gasoline tank is kind of ridiculous. That's just there.
I kind of forgot about that. Like there's a literal explosion, but it's kind of one of the first times that you'll see just a random shot. You're like, let's throw a gasoline tank right in the middle of this fire that just erupted on his bed. Was he already covered in some of the gasoline? Is that why like he immediately lights off of the birthday candles? I don't understand how it lit so fast.
Yeah, it's like sometimes like a match, I kind of like, oh dang, I was trying to put it out, but it fell on the table or whatever. Like, ooh, put it out, no big deal, right? This thing, like this birthday candles in the eyes of this skull, like just whispered to his bed, and it just went up in flames. But I get it; it's part of the creation of the Cropsey. They should have just called them crispy. Okay, sorry.
Wow. Okay.
No,
Fire.
because
crispy. I get it.
Hold on, Lance. That's on brand for the type of camp, the campers that are at this camp. It is on brand. That's sort of like, we'll get into it. I promise we'll get into it. But yes, back to the hospital. Like you were saying, again, the most aggressive hospital intern of all time. That's all for me.
Yeah. And he awakens Cropsey apparently because Cropsey grabs him, dramatic scene and all that. But now, like, all of a sudden, Cropsey's in like rehabilitation, and it's this again really weird insertion of like, oh, like, forgive those kids. It was an accident. You'll be on your way now. And they put him in the Man in Black suit from Halloween 4, 5, and 6 for some reason. And now he's on the streets. And he goes and picks up I'm just jumping around, but he goes and picks up a hooker, like the first thing, like, oh, I'm rehabilitated, I'm burnt, whatever. And he attacks the hooker. And this scene was heavily cut out because right away he guts her with like scissors that she's trying to grab. For some reason, she's also a seamstress and she has scissors and thread everywhere. So she grabs the scissors and guts her. And like watching the full version of this, it's pretty gory. Like, you see like the stomach like get penetrated and there's just blood gushing and the knife or the scissors are just going up and Cropsey pushes her out the window. But the whole reason I'm telling you all of this is if you pause it really quick, you'll notice that Cropsey is not only is he wearing the Man in Black jacket and the fedora, but you can like look and he's actually wearing goggles for some reason or like these really like Coke bottle sunglasses or something, which is really a bizarre choice. And
yeah, so I wrote the most aggressive Invisible Man kill I've ever seen in my life.
Okay,
you fools! It just I definitely got an Invisible Man, especially the way the Invisible Man looked in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Wow, I bet you didn't think you were going to get a reference to the League of the fucking Extraordinary Gentlemen, but here we are.
No, absolutely not.
It's funny you mentioned about that scene, Lance, about how it was kind of cut together because she flips on a dime. I'm speaking of the hooker in this scene. She flips on a dime. She's like, well, you're the one paying, so whatever the hell, why don't you come up and see me sometime? Come on, ring a ding ding. And she's like, she's got it going on. And then in just 2 seconds, not even, she turns around and looks at him. She's like, and I'm doing that on purpose because I think she got one part of her acting chops that she can definitely do, which is I'm a hooker. Come and chew some gum with me upstairs in my apartment. I need you to look terrified in this moment. Didn't come across. It was a very weird choice. But yes, she gets killed, and I don't know if Tom, first name basis, I don't know if Tom Savini would admit this or has mentioned this. I kind of feel like he has somewhere. I could see his face, a talking head. I could see it of him mentioning something about not being a fan of like his early blood work. But if that was his, oh baby, did they get the runniest, brightest red blood? And then again, I don't see a lot of blood being spilled. I know what I know about Tom Savini is, he's a vet, he was in Vietnam, so he saw a lot of this stuff happening. But I do have that as not a criticism, but as a observation of the blood throughout the movie. It's very bright and it's very liquid, like it's runny, liquidy,
Yeah, but it's like all over the place. Like
Mhm.
watching this again, I was like, damn, this is a bloody film. And there are some shocking scenes again with the restoration and getting to see everything that, maybe it was originally cut out. This is a pretty gory movie all in all. And this is our first taste of it. And it's a good, like, gutting scene for 1981. You know what I mean? Like, that was gnarly.
And she probably doesn't do well by Danny's asshole standards, apparently, with her suspense acting. But her scream is blood curdling, man. She lets that shit out, and I'm just like, okay, stop already. This is uncomfortable. But okay, right? That's the point. I want to make the audience uncomfortable because here I am. I'm getting killed by a pair of scissors. Just really, we're not going to go obviously too in, scene by scene, but I do want to mention, Lance, go on a journey with me for 2 seconds if you can.
I'm here. Yes.
I need your help also to articulate what I'm about to kind of go through. So there are these shots that are all through the 70s, late 70s into the early 80s. And if you could think of the shot I'm about to mention, it's an exterior night shot on a building. And in this case, the hospital. And then fast forward into the night scene. They don't do a lot of additional light because it's nighttime, right? So it's all very real. So it's very dark. And like the only things that are being illuminated are where the light's coming from. And that is, I said to Kaylin, we watched it recently, when he's walking through the streets, he's like cruising to pick up the hooker. It reminded me of American Werewolf in London, just the way that and sorry, yes, that the ending of American Werewolf in London, but definitely the howling when he's going into the peep show area,
okay.
the way they shoot the night, and it adds to the overall creep factor, if that makes sense,
No, totally. Again, I got to make this comparison, but the Friday the 13th franchise, we mentioned this in some of the first few films, is like they didn't like the background, like everything's black. And then you get a few trees that are lit in the foreground, and then you get your characters that are lit, because it's just, you don't have this huge budget to light an entire area. And you will see it in this movie, the way it's lit is they kind of do it's like starting to be nighttime, but they're shooting it during the day and putting a filter over it to make it look like it's nighttime or moonlight or something like that. So you're right. It's more of the production value. It's the budget. And it just kind of made these films this weird, dark, charming feeling where you are creeped out.
Yes.
And you just can't capture it anymore.
The last comparison I'll make to it is New Year's Evil. There's a lot, obviously, because it's taking place over the course of the night when they're counting down to the new year, but a lot of dark scenes are used in that movie, and there's a lot of that just adds to the overall feeling to it. So that blending into, huge fan of opening credits when they're quick, concise, let's get to the point. And they have an original song, kind of like the wonderful opening credits of Slasher's Paradise, may I add. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lance, for your amazing work. But that said, we got boom, The Burning, we got all of the the key players, and I can't even tell you what the song or the theme is, but it's very of the time and it's very uneasy. So love the opening credits, love the establishing shots of the nighttime. All of it is just adding to the overall feeling, but something we've definitely seen already with, like you mentioned, Friday 13th.
Yeah, it's funny just going back to the hospital, the way it's shot. Wasn't even going to mention this, but since you did, I was thinking this time watching, like, we wouldn't even know if it wasn't a hospital. It's literally just a pan from the bottom of a building up, and it's all dark, and then there's one or two rooms that are lit, and we're just like, oh, I guess that's the room we're going to next. You know what I mean? So like, that's how dark this thing is shot, and you can kind of get away with a lot more back then. Like I said, it could have been any building, and you're just going to call it a hospital.
Yeah, I see something like that, and my mind instantly starts to wander, and it's like, yeah, isn't that sort of not the feeling you want to get from a hospital where there's supposed to be hope and care
Right.
and comfort and rehabilitation, whatever is synonymous with a hospital. And when I see a black blob and just two lit windows, I almost feel like hope is lost. It's weird. I think I'm getting too poetic, if that's possible. I just like, it didn't resonate with me to instill that sort of like that overall like what you're supposed to feel when you see a hospital. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, it all adds to it. So kudos if they did it. It's creepy, and
Yeah.
there's obviously a scary man up there, man. He's up there. He's burned. And if you ain't seen some real shit, if you ain't seen this shit, so you better watch this shit, man.
All right. Well, all of this leads us to a camp full of a ton of campers. Like, there's my note for like kind of introducing a lot of these characters is it's just busy right off the bat. There's so many people that you are introduced to that you're like, I don't know who to follow. I don't know who a main character is for a good like 15-20 minutes in. I'm like, okay, I guess we're starting to follow these few guys, and like, you recognize some faces, but they are actually from back then you would not have, because they were debuting. They weren't like huge actors. They weren't like, they were brand new. So like, I know that I want to follow these guys, but like, it was just like busy, just so many people and so many characters right off the bat. I'm like, whoa, like, I don't know who to follow. And I'm like, okay, now I just want to know about Cropsey, because I don't know what else I'm supposed to really follow right now.
Yeah, so we started off in Camp Blackfoot, and now we're in Camp Stonewater, I believe.
Stonewater. Yeah, I think so.
Camp Cutwater, might as well. Ranch Water. All these like I don't give a shit. I'm just going to say right now, and I need it to be heard by everyone. Listen. This is the wet, hot American summer camp as far as how many kids are there, all of ages, all of everything. I am instantly, and I cannot believe I'm saying this about a horror slasher movie set in the woods at a camp. I am so jealous. I don't know about you, Lance. I think we kind of talked about this anyway in Friday the 13th, but again, I'm going to reiterate it. I didn't get these opportunities, man. There were no sleepaway camps near where I grew up. It wasn't a thing. I don't think like a lot of people didn't really sleep outside where I'm from, so to speak, because it's like very humid and very sticky and very ugly. This feels like definitely an East Coast thing. As far as, yeah, that's where this is set. It's in upstate New York, and you could tell by some of the accents and some of like the bravado of some of these campers. But all that to say is like, I'm instantly jealous. I really wanted an opportunity to do a sleepaway camp, and they're like, well, what is your reference to sleepaway camps besides the movie? Now, I never actually seen the movie. It's just like, that's the term. It's like a sleepaway camp because you're going to go and you're going to stay over. What's your reference? I don't know. Friday the 13th. Right. Okay. Danny, is there something wrong with you? You want to go stay in a camp knowing that your example of people staying at a camp, people are getting hacked to death? Yeah. I'm weird, but at the same time, it looks like a heck of a time before shit goes off the rails.
Yeah, no. I get the point that you're making. Like, no, they all went there to have a great time and have lots of sex. And this movie is chock full of sex. And uh, Danny, you okay there? You gave me the puppy
What?
noise over there.
Oh, did I? Sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
think it came out.
No, it's chock full of sex all over the place. But you kind of mentioned the New York accents, the vibrato of a lot of the movie was cast in New York. These are a lot of local hires that were just filling roles. What? Danny's making faces at me. It's distracting me. What? Danny, you
I'm
have a point
sorry,
to make?
Lance. I'm sorry, Lance. I am sorry about my faces. I have a rubber face, and it just though it happens. Okay, but let me just say
Yeah, there it is.
that this camp, besides all the fun that they're having, is ridiculous because the campers, I don't give a shit. Actually, you know what? It's actually not called Camp Stonewater. It's called Camp Wise Guy. I don't know whose Goodfellas kids these are, but these kids are all like street smart and streets. It's just the way they're talking to each other. I think the ringleader is Jason Alexander, but I'm just like, okay. I wanted to ask Siri. I wanted to ask Google. I was like, I needed to know, and I probably could like Google it right here as we're doing the episode, but I wanted to know how old, maybe you know this, Lance. How old is Jason Alexander when he does this movie?
Oh, from way back memory, I want to say he's like 23 or something in there.
Just starting with 20, already over the time, the age limit in which you should be going to a camp. Some actors don't look their age and they could play younger, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to say, God love him. He's hilarious. And, George Costanza, I mean, come on. Are you kidding? Jason Alexander cannot play a young camper. He is definitely, I was like, okay, is this just a group of counselors? Are they going on a retreat? Because there was a lot of just like the counselors and the campers were very close in age, at least the way they kind of like interacted with each other. So I'm like, at the very least, or very best, rather, these campers are 18 in high school, perhaps. But Jason Alexander's got a 5 o'clock shadow. He's talking like he's been around the block. It looks like he's divorced. He's just like there's just so much that he's bringing to this, and just the way they all talk to each other. Anyway, yeah, Camp Wise Guy is just like, hey, what are y'all starting without me? What's going on here? Hey, girls, how's it going? Yeah, come on. And anyway, sorry, maybe they're related to the hooker. The way I did the impression.
I was gonna make this point, but you've just kind of added to it. Was that Jason Alexander throughout this kind of has fat guy syndrome, where he will not take off his shirt even when he's swimming. We've been there as kids. You kind of just know you swim with your shirt on. But there's a scene at like towards the end of this where it's like, oh, let me swim over there, and he like pulls up his shirt just a tad, and you can see the hairiest belly of anyone. So it kind of proves your point of like he wasn't taking his shirt off because he was self-conscious and fat, or he thought he was fat because he's not. But it's because he was so hairy, it would have like been the tell of like, oh, he's way older than this 16, 17, 18-year-old that he's supposed to be at summer camp. It makes no sense. A lot of the cast is a lot older than they're supposed to be. And I don't know if it was just like favors or just like, we like you. Let's just make the movie or what. I don't know what it was, but a lot of these campers are a little too old for.
You can't deny, though, the charisma that Jason Alexander has. I never thought I'd say that out loud, but you can't deny it when you watch this movie that he is definitely above and shining above a lot of these actors. Like, you could tell he's very confident in what he's saying. He's very present when he is doing a lot of his interactions with everybody. And that's just not to, I mean, this is not like the Jason Alexander movie, because he's definitely like, you watch it because you know who he is now. But
Right.
if you didn't, he would just maybe you could assume he's just part of the group. But I said this, I'm like, oh my goodness, this movie is, you know how they say star-studded? This movie is B-list star-studded for sure. Like, not only do you have Jason Alexander, but you have Leah Ayres, who was great in this movie, but hello, was the reporter covering the very secret Kumite in Bloodsport, lest we forget. So we got her. We also got Brian Backer, as you mentioned, was right. This was right before or right after? Fast Times.
This is the year before, right? Ridgemont High is either 82 or 83, so this is a year or two before Ridgemont High.
I kept on calling him Rat during the whole thing, right? I'm like, dude, Rat is pissing me off. Rat is because that's his character in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So you got Brian Backer, and then of course, lest we forget, Fisher
no.
Stevens, who has enjoyed a wonderful career as a character actor, but is definitely the creator of Johnny Number 5 in Short Circuit. Okay, so just that's it. Johnny Number 5. Oh gosh, hey, Short Circuit horror movie we can cover. Not really, but anyway, that's what I said. Like they're all just kind of scattered all over, and of course, I mean, okay, bury the lead. Holly Hunter is in this as well. So just this was definitely a lot of people's starts. God bless horror movies for giving a lot of actors their first start, right? So
right.
This movie is not any different in that regard.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't really set up a picture of why we like this movie yet. There are crazy moments of suspense in this movie, and even some very realistic human moments. And we'll get to the human moments in a minute, but there's a scene where Fisher Stevens' character, Woodstock, yeah, that's right, they call him Woodstock. He kind of goes off on his own and into his own cabin, and I forget what he's doing. I don't know if he's just like looking for something or
he's looking for his vitamin E.
His vitamin E, that's right. Yeah. So he's looking for his vitamin E. He goes off by himself into the dark cabin and he's looking for it, no lights or anything. And somebody follows him in, and we've already seen the new point of view of Cropsey, which is kind of blurred because he's burned, so his vision is blurred, which is kind of cool. We've seen that before, but we've seen the Cropsey vision follow Woodstock into the cabin, so he's lurking, he's stalking, and somebody walks in behind Woodstock, and Woodstock's terrified. But there's the way the music hits, the way the lighting hits, the way they film the shadow of the person walking in. I was like, damn, this is a tense moment. This is really dark. Like, just think about this teenage boy off on his own in the dark at a camp. It's just, there's some creepy moments, and this is one of them where I was like, damn, I actually had to write it in my notes because I was like, this is suspenseful. And it wasn't even Cropsey in the end. It's Todd, who was actually original prankster and is now our, I guess, camp counselor. They never really say it's camp counselor, but he's basically a camp counselor. He's the adult figure there. You're good, by the way. But that scene just is tense. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, Lance. There's again, we talk about I guess our love of lighting. Let's just be honest. Like you are a savant over there with your background. I'm just kind of like throughout this whole thing, just jealous of how you just kind of play with the colors and angles and stuff like that. But I'll say we do love a good harsh lighting. And there is that moment where he finally finds his vitamin E. He's hunkered over his chest, his trunk that's under his bed, and there's just like imagine as if like the area light of a street is shining through like the door and it's lighting him, and he sees somebody, he sees the shadow, he's very tense and stuff, and it does it well. I'll even go and say it starts with how he walks. I think they picked the right person, the right character, the right actor for this moment, because when he's walking back to the cabin, you seasoned horror moviegoers know that he's walking to something terrible, and he's just
Yeah.
walking. He's just kind of walking like, and people walk in movies. I've seen people walk in movies all the time. What I see in his kind of walk, and I don't know if it's because the high shorts and the long legs and the fact that he's very skinny and he invented Johnny Number 5. I'm not sure. But what it is that he gives off a very innocent sort of demeanor. So I think that definitely adds to the creep value. But let me just go ahead and start this damn narrative that I really want to make sure we touch on. You mentioned that there's a lot of sex in this movie, and the character. Okay, sorry, the character is Alfred. Alfred. I do not like Alfred. For 1 minute, I do not like Alfred. 1, he's a peeping Tom. 2, he's got the face. And 3, he just doesn't like defend himself in a great way. Okay, real quick. Lots of sex, lots of nudity and stuff like that. There's this one point that one of the campers, Sally, is taking a shower in an outhouse sort of a situation, and let me just say, nobody's getting clean on that water pressure. I'm sorry. Like, I get it, it's camp and stuff like that, but that is a trickle. I'd be pissed the entire time. I need something that's going to take the skin off of my body. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just establish that. So whenever you all are be like, oh, I wonder what kind of water pressure Danny likes. Anyway, so Alfred is watching her. She catches him, and she is so visibly, audibly distraught. Like, that is a terrible moment, and I hate it for her because she is so like sad. And then you have so the head counselor for the girls is Michelle, played by Leah Ayres, and then the head counselor for the boys is Todd, played by Brian Matthews, right? Okay. Todd is a goddamn enabler. He does not want to fess up, or not fess up. He does not want to admit that the boys are doing anything wrong. And I've never seen so many Alfred apologists for just terrible behavior. Alfred is a shit. He's a piece of shit. He's looking at her and she's trying to take this shower and she's having a hard time as it is because she's got too much shampoo in her head and not enough water's coming out of the damn spigot. And she's having a horrible time, Lance. And then Michelle does believe her and she's like, hey, you got to reprimand Alfred. And then Todd's like, yeah, I'll take care of it, right? And she's like, yeah, you'll take care of it. What the hell just happened here? Are we just going to glance over the fact that Alfred is just a peeping Tom? Anyway, throughout the whole situation, and of course, like, big reveal later, obviously, Todd is not that great of a person. I just didn't like that. Every time something happens and Todd is the one that has to kind of right the ship or be held accountable, he's like, just leave him alone. Let me see. And he just like is an apologist for these like dickheads. That's all.
Yeah. It's a lot of boys will be boys. There's a lot of that going on throughout the movie. But you touch on something that I kind of touched on before, and there's a couple more points to this later on, but it's the human element, the trauma that you feel like somebody peeped on you and you felt that, and you see that through Sally. You see this throughout. And it's one thing that this movie captures really well, besides some shocking horror gore scenes, is certain human elements that are like, wow, this is going to stick with them, or this really hurt them, or this really traumatized them. This is something that will stick with them in the rest of their lives. There's a bunch of these scenes, and this is, I think, the first one where you're like, wow, like they actually captured that. And it's almost surprising coming out of this movie, because I feel like maybe Friday the 13th had better actors through it, and you had a smaller cast, so you didn't really capture that maybe as much. You kind of bled through it. You had a better story, maybe. I don't know what it was, but you didn't capture these really human moments of trauma. And there's a couple of them in this movie. I want to get to one eventually later on. That's a big one, but it's the biggest part of this movie probably. But yeah, I'm glad that you touched on the Sally part, because that was one of the first ones, and you actually see that, and they capture that. There's a lot of boys will be boys and no big deal. There's a lot of sexuality from the women's side of it. And it's a lot of that in your face kind of stuff that we don't really go for anymore. But it's all there, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that you touched on that.
Yeah, thank you, man. I mean, it's definitely a camp. There's definitely a lot of kids. They definitely lean into the fact they're like, no, let's make a camp setting look like a camp setting. And you mentioned, what did you what do we really like about this movie? And I think for me, it's that. I think for me, it's yes, a lot of it could be chalked up to you give us a lot of characters because you're giving us a lot of cannon fodder. You're giving us a lot of victims. That's why you give us a lot of characters in these movies, but not necessarily. I mean, yes, sure, a lot of people do die in this movie, right? But I think what I love about this movie so much is that it's kind of ridiculous. It kind of doesn't fit. It's a weird setting. It's not a weird setting, but it's a weird delivery of all like oh, I've seen all these pieces before, but I've never seen them arranged in this way,
Right,
so to
right.
speak, right? But what I do like is that like there's little kids there, because that's the way a sleepaway camp is. It's for, ages, X all the way up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's what I like about it. I do say it's Camp Wise Guy. I called one of the characters Glazier. I'm like, who's Glazier Pesci over here? He's, what you're gonna get? Oh, you're gonna get a knuckle sandwich. But what I do say is that it's a horror movie, wet, hot American summer. That's what I say about this. That's why I like this movie a lot. It's got lots of comedy, intentional
Yeah.
or unintentional. It's
Right,
got
right.
some great horror, some great suspense, and I think I guess, maybe we should. It's tough I want to talk about Cropsey right now. I want to talk about the iconic look of a slasher because I think at the end of the day, that's what I resonate with the most. If you guys were listening to our I Know What You Did Last Summer podcast, you'll know that I love talking about what the image of the killer represents. And
Mm.
someone mentioned it, and I really should look up who said this because it's such a great point. Everyone who makes these horror movies, at least when it was the heyday of the slasher movie genre, they pretty much say, yeah, we would love to strike gold or lightning, kind of strike and get an iconic looking character that you got merchandise and you got an amazing image. Hell, look who's behind me, all draped around me. It's like Michael
Oh, yeah.
Myers. It's like that image, right? So I think honestly, you did get it with Cropsey. I think you got something here. You could definitely lean into it. So you got a creative weapon in the garden shears. I
Mhm.
think you need to make them a little bit longer, because the ones that look that I saw kind of look like scissors, to be honest. But that being said, I just think that like it was pretty much all there. Like you could have definitely made a franchise out of this, but I would have loved to have leaned more into the image of the Cropsey killer, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the kills are I mean, you see the back of them or you don't see them at all. You see just the action of the shears going into somebody, cutting the throats. You see a lot of that. It's not till the very end where you get a true reveal. There is a really cool moment, and I remember it's the first time I watched the film was what got me into it, and it's where Alfred actually sees Cropsey for the first time. And the boys are kind of messing around in the cabin, and Cropsey just kind of like walks by or just like stops, and you see his face for a quick second, and it reminds me of being a kid, man, just like looking out the windows and just kind of your imagination just going to dark places, and you're like, did I just see what I think I saw? And Alfred kind of freaks out, and he's already kind of the twerp that everyone's like shitting on, and maybe for good reason. And so that was the scene. I was like, oh, cool, we got to see Cropsey finally, and we know that he's there. We've seen his view and that blurred view, so it's like, yeah, you did want to see more of him. But and the campfire scene, I just want to talk about really quick because it's so Friday the 13th. But the way that it's set up, like Todd basically tells the version of Cropsey, but it's his version that he lived. Did you notice that? Like it's literally what he did to Cropsey. He
I don't
literally
think I put that
tells
together.
Yeah, he tells the story of Cropsey blowing out of the door and like going into the woods and never being seen again. He kind of tells the version of once you make the connection that it's Todd's one of the original kids.
Right.
Like, holy
Yes.
shit, he just told the story of what he did.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because wow, dude, I didn't even put that together. But what I did want to say is the story of Cropsey might have a lot of that urban legend feel of the original folk tale of I Know What You Did Last Summer. You got a
Mhm.
same sort of area, got a same style. It's a killer with a hook, or it's a killer who, takes revenge on things, I mean, for the most part, Cropsey was El Cucuy, right? He was a boogeyman for the upper East Coast. Is that what you got up there under
Yeah,
your
it's El
hat?
Cucuy.
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
I want a hat. I want that hat. Give me your hat. No, uh, I love a good old fashioned campfire story, Lance. Why can't we just have those? Why can't you and I just tell stories by the campfire?
I
Tune in
think we
next time. Slash's Paradise goes live from the campfire.
I think it's coming, guys. But anyway. Yeah.
But real quick. I love a good old fashioned campfire story. It's not only about the teller of the story. It has to be in the listeners too. You got to just let yourself buy into the bullshit, You got
Yeah.
one of my favorite Halloween memories is the one that we when I say we Caitlin and I, my wife, with this couple that we watched these movies with, we had during the shutdown. It was a very we were on our way out of a shutdown, but we did like a Halloween where all we did was each of us brought a campfire story. So we all just
Cool.
kind of told a story, and it was
Yeah.
really fun because I was like, hey, this is only going to be as fun as we all make it. So like, let us all get into it. And you see that in this campfire story during the burning. It's like everyone's just kind of like, you could always have even Glazer, who we've kind of glossed over, but Glazer Pesci over here is like the tough guy. They talk about his huge muscles and stuff, and it's great. He's this dude who's like the alpha. He's trying to be the alpha camper. Even he is buying into it, and I'm like, yes, nobody's above the campfire story. Let the campfire story do its thing. Anyway, I love that aspect of it for sure.
Yeah, I love the elements of this because basically Todd is playing a prank on everybody, which is always like the classic way that it's done in films. Is they're talking about somebody out in the woods, and there is actually somebody out in the woods. But what it made me laugh was you see the little gloved hand come up behind somebody, and it made me laugh. But it is also so creepy at the same time because again, those dark woods and the way it's shot, you're like, that's creepy, but it's also hilarious, and you know what's about to happen. And he gets to the end of the story, and everyone's like, "Oh no!" And then a character dressed as Cropsey pops out, and it's a pretty amazing mask. I'm sure Todd Savini probably made that mask as well.
It was either Tom Savini or Tommy Jarvis. One of the Toms made it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a creepy mask, and he jumps out with this huge blade to scare the campers from the story, and it's a fun moment. It's a classic moment that you see probably everywhere. A lot of movies have probably copied it or done it before. I don't know, but it's a fun scene. It's a cool scene. I enjoyed that scene. It's very familiar to everyone, especially
It
if you
sure
watch Friday the
is.
13th.
Yeah, absolutely. Another quick story. I've mentioned the ranch before, down in Texas, and I have a bunch of cousins, and uh it feels like every campfire, like, hey, I'm gonna tell you a ghost story, has to end with, and that body was never found. And some people say it's still out there. Who knows? It could be closer than you think. And you know what? He's right there. And you point back.
Yeah.
It always has to end
Yeah.
in like a big jump scare. Anyway, that reminds
Totally.
me of one that we did at the ranch, and my cousins did that, and scared the shit out of all of us. It was awesome. I mean, I ran until I couldn't see anymore. But yeah, it's all fun and games until somebody starts getting poked in the neck with garden shears. So although we love the setup, reality is art imitating life. Now the story is coming to life, or maybe the story never ended because Todd, had he not done this bullshit when he was a kid, we all might have had just a fun canoe adventure, because that's what they all did. All the older campers are going to go on a canoe adventure where they're
Mhm.
it's an overnight. They're going to canoe out to a part of the area that is under this camp's jurisdiction. Nice. And spend the night. No, you know, there is supervision, but as we've already come to know, Todd is a piece of shit. Michelle's all right, but these kids are basically being sent off to go get busy in the bushes, if you know what I mean. But it would have been all right if Todd wasn't a piece of shit when he was a younger kid, and being like the catalyst of this whole Cropsey situation.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So apparently this kayak trip takes them to a place where the only way in or out is through kayak. There's no mention of like an island or something, but my guess is that it's just so thick wooded or rock. I don't know what it is, but there's only one way in or out of this area that they go to, and that is the kayak area. We have the scene where Karen and Eddie have a really uncomfortable, slightly sexual scene. They go skinny dipping. Shelly's not involved on this one. Eddie really tries to force himself on her. She's not having it. She skips out. Yes, Danny's so excited that I mentioned Shelly and skinny dipping. But Karen jumps out of there. She's, not having it. It's a really uncomfortable scene, honestly, real life scene. But she gets out of there and her clothes are spread all out. Basically, Cropsey, this is one was actually in my notes. One of the deaths that was in my notes. Karen gets it so bloody, like she gets it in the neck. It's a very similar scene to Friday the 13th, the first kill, the throat cut. Tom Savini did that. He kind of borrowed from that. He admitted that, but it's so much more blood. It's like a crazy amount. Like we're like, oh, there's a weird thing to most of the kills where they went slow motion for some reason. It's like this kind of stutter, and they really didn't need to. It would have been a lot more shocking if it was just, it just doesn't really translate when it's in slow motion. But when you get the blood oozing out of these wounds and this uncut version of it, it's a lot of blood, and it is shocking to see. Again, you said like the color is very bright, it's very runny, but it is so shocking to see. Especially when Karen gets her throat slashed by the shears and Cropsey.
And I might be saying that, Lance, because obviously I'm probably watching it in HD, and it's like, some stuff is a little lost versus like VHS quality, right?
Right.
But I will say about that scene is, dude, I've gone swimming in some ponds before. Heck, man. I mean, there's been some great rain seasons at the ranch, and to celebrate, you go jump in the presa, you just go jump in it, and it's awesome. But let me just tell you that it takes half a millisecond for something to crawl up your pee-pee and infect you. It takes half a millisecond, and these two just gave no barrier. They didn't go trunks, they go skinny dipping. I just have never skinny dipping in a pond, in a river is just it's just so it gives me the G, because hey, look it up. You want to talk about people they got infected through their penile or their areas because microbes and stuff swam up there and it got up in you, and it's not an old wives' tale, it's reality, right? But that's all I could think about when they were just like frolicking in there, because that when they were touching the ground, it was mud, they were kicking it up. There might have been a catfish down there. Anyway, if you're gonna go skinny dipping, make sure it's in a pool, a chlorine pool. That's all I'll say.
Okay, yeah. My experience with lakes, I've gone in not skinny dipping, but it's always on fucking rocks for some reason that have the algae, and you just keep slipping and cutting your feet as you're trying to walk. It's the worst experience to go into lakes, especially from the dock or whatever. But so that's that scene. Basically, we wake up from there, and all the kayaks are gone, and we're stranded on this chunk of land that apparently we can't get off of any other way.
I think it's very funny that it's like the only way we could get onto this area is through kayak and canoe. Well, I hope we don't lose them. Well, guess what's going to happen? Of course, you're going to lose them. So
yeah. So the kayaks are gone. Karen's missing. Everyone's looking for her. We got to get out of here. So what are we going to do? We're campers. We're going to build a raft.
The most impressive raft I have
So-
ever seen.
I thought the same thing. Like they just start collecting, every camper's collecting wood. And within like 5 minutes, they have like the perfect amount of wood, but it's like, obviously it was cut perfectly to like make the base, then they're bringing branches like, oh, perfect. Let's put that over there with a pile. But like the raft that they make is like so perfectly done. They do it within 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, all boy and girl scouts, they all put it together real quick. Hey, could you hand me the rope? Where'd you get the rope? I don't know.
I was like, I guess it's another HD situation or something like that. But I'm like, were they not expecting us to see the wood pallet under the raft?
Right.
It's a full-on wood pallet that you see on deliveries when you are like at Costco or something. It was like a full wood pallet there. I'm like, oh yeah, you can make anything when you have a base that's that sturdy.
Yeah.
But yes, it was like really quick ingenuity. I'm like, okay, maybe I can believe that if these campers were, have not trying to like bang each other every second. There's no way they were listening in arts and crafts to put this thing together. That's all I'm saying. Of like that, if anybody's going to put it together, it's not those campers.
Right. All right. This leads us to the most iconic scene and the most well-known scene of the movie, the raft scene. A chunk of our campers go onto this raft to go and hunt for the kayaks to try to bring them back, or get help to bring them back, to get everyone off of this supposed island or this area, including Woodstock. Woodstock's on there. So they go, paddling out. They find a kayak. They swim up, or they paddle up to the kayak. And again, we get a little more of that suspense. And you're almost, I was expecting to see Karen in there. We know that Karen's dead. We haven't found her yet. So you're expecting for them to find a dead body. Maybe Cropsey comes out of the water, Jason Voorhees style or something. But no, Cropsey just crop dusts everyone. It just jumps out of the kayak, and just the most shocking horror scene. Again, it got me today. I was watching the movie. I was like, damn, like there was just no holds barred on this one. The shears are out. Cropsey's out, and he tears apart everyone with the shears. And we're seeing limbs coming off. Woodstock. This is the big one. Is like Woodstock's fingers get cut off. Big spoiler, but this was kind of like the iconic one. Is the shears take off the fingers? You see the fingers come off. It's just a massacre on the raft, and it's just pretty shocking and bloody.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've always said though, like, don't show me a cool weapon if you're not gonna like truly use the weapon the way it's intended. That always bugged me about like Leonardo's swords, right? Or like the Freddy Krueger's like glove. Like I want to see it be in use. I want to see it. So like for the most part up until this point, you're kind of seeing the guardian shears as kind of being used as like stabbing, right? Even though it's like dual blades, I want to see the ching. I want to see them actually cut. And we definitely see that happen with Woodstock's hand. Some people thought that this could have been the prequel to Short Circuit, and he would have survived that and gone and made Johnny Number 5, but without a hand, you just can't. So it's definitely not. It's not a prequel. But yeah, whoa, Cropsey I love crop dust as a thing. Like that's a signature move. He's coming down with the crop duster. So he tears that raft apart. But I kind of thought about it once I saw who got on the raft and who was rafting out. I'm like, oh yeah, they're all gonna die, because it was a lot of like the side characters. I mean, yeah, like Woodstock and Eddie are on there, but for the most part, it's all folks that we haven't really interacted with.
Yeah. And again, we were on the hook for Woodstock earlier. We thought that was going to be the end of him. So it's kind of like it was a foreshadow that, we weren't going to see Woodstock forever. But again, this scene is just so shocking, and it leads to the biggest like human moment of the film, the one that I wanted to get to, which is the raft comes floating back towards the campers that have been waiting for, some word of where the kayaks are and everything. And man, the kids see the gore. They see their fellow campers just annihilated. They see the arm floats off. They see Woodstock's body kind of float out of the water. And the trauma that the kids go through is like, it's disturbing actually, because not only is the raft full of bodies of their fellow campers, but now they're having to they don't show this part, but basically they have to get those bodies off and get all the campers that are left back on the raft and go, now we got to get back to the main camp. Are you fucking kidding me? And these kids sell it. As they're paddling back, you can hear them crying. You can see their faces are distraught. They're literally on a raft that their fellow campers were just massacred on, and they're trying to get to safety. They're paddling for their lives at this point. That scene, man, is just what stuck out the most, actually. It's the shock and the gore and then the trauma that these kids really portray.
For sure. Absolutely. It's definitely a rough scene because they don't really notice it until, as it comes back, they see the raft, and then of course, Jason Alexander's character is kind of just Dave. He's just kind of quipping because that's been his thing the whole time. But yeah, once the shit hits the fan, man, and you're like, damn it, shit, that's all our friends. They're all dead. How the hell are we gonna get out of here? God damn it, we got to get their bodies off of this raft because the raft's still intact. That just that's a testament to the ingenuity of that raft for all intents and purposes. This raft survived. Is such an amazing ordeal. But yeah, they have to board the raft, and it's probably can you imagine, because it's not a short trip. They're going, can you imagine you're going and you're trying to get back to safety, and you're like, oh, I've been rowing for a minute, let me take a break. You kind of sit down for a little bit. You're like, oh, there's a finger. Oh, dang it, that looks like Lance's finger. What the hell? This is reality. Yeah, I cannot even imagine the headspace that a person would be in if they have to raft to safety on something that just was holding all of their friends in pieces. Crazy to imagine.
It's crazy, but it's like so many horror films. I think the cliche is well, moving on, you know what I mean? They just, oh, well, forget about that. We got to get to safety. So you just kind of process and but this, you actually see the human reaction. That's how you would, well, I have to raft my way back to the camp for my own safety because something's out there killing my friends. I don't know, man. You just don't see it much in horror films, and it really stood out. So I'm so glad that we got to talk about it and mention it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're pretty much here. It's time. The rubber is definitely hit the road, and you got Alfred, who has been the piece of shit twerp. I love twerp. I love that as a descriptor for Alfred. Absolutely. He's definitely the twerp throughout the whole thing, but has kind of been a red herring. He will eventually be a red herring. Okay, spoiler. But the idea is that the suspicion has been raised on Alfred pretty much the whole movie. It's is Alfred also the one that's doing these things? Because we've already established that he's a creeper and he's going to do things. He might even result to murder, maybe, right? So, nope, wrong. Alfred actually isn't the killer. And quite frankly, the killer has taken a huge interest in Alfred and is chasing the shit out of him. Down to this abandoned I don't know, it's like a warehouse sort of thing that's just on this island. So what was this, a mill or something like that?
It's literally a mine underneath these grounds. It's like an abandoned building. You're right. It's like the ruins of a building, but then it leads into a mine shaft or mine whatever. Yeah.
So again, I ended up asking myself the question. It was okay, Alfred's in trouble. All the campers got out of there besides Todd, who's decided that he's going to save Alfred. And I'm like, Todd must fucking love Alfred. He is going all out to defending him, watching out for him, and then going balls to the wall to save him. I'm like, okay, you really like Alfred. Like, dude, like everyone deserves your attention, Todd. But maybe I don't know. He was just like it was just a funny observation. I'm like, okay, this dude is really protecting Alfred. But yeah, Alfred's getting his ass chased. And for what seems though, Lance, like an eternity of a chase scene, I feel like Alfred ran a 10K, not even a 5K. I feel like this twerp ran a 10K, but kudos to the filmmakers. They at least made sure to be like, yeah, he's been running for a minute. So they like were drenching his shirt. You were going to mention that? They were drenching his shirt in sweat because he's been running his ass off.
But it's like it's the perfect thing because the sweat increases as he's running. So it's like, it was like just great. I don't know. I don't want to say filmmaking, but they really captured like the progression of sweat on him. You know what I mean? Like from the beginning of the chase, the continuity is definitely there. But from the beginning of the chase where he's like a little like a little sweaty to the end of it where his shirt is drenched, his face is drenched, his hair is drenched in sweat. And it really added to it. Again, there's just like these little things. There's a lot of weird details that are missing or little insert shots, which part of this, when, Todd is going to go save Alfred, he ends up in the mine and there's this weird insert shot. Do you remember the insert shot? Todd goes falling through like again, it's a literal mine cart comes and crashes down and makes him fall through some wood planks or something. And he's like, oh, I'm out of it. And then he kind of looks around and there's a literal like insert shot of one of the girls. I don't remember if it was Sally. It's probably Sally, but it's the scene of her death. And they like cropped around her. But if you look really close, you can see a tree. It makes no sense. But I'm telling you right now, if you're going to watch the movie, pause it when you see this girl's face. It's literally the death scene from earlier in the movie. But I think the point of it was that she's supposed to be hanging there or something. Like this is Cropsey's like lair, and he dragged the body back, and it's supposed to shock him. But instead, it's just this weird insert shot, and it makes no sense. And then they go back to it again. It's just one of those weird like, why was that there? Like all he had to do was get up, But
a victim of the cutting room floor, perhaps. Someone maybe too many cooks in the dang kitchen or whatever. I did. The ending was simple. It is simple. It doesn't need to be. Rarely does anything need to be super overdone. If you kind of set it up and give us all the pieces, and we're gonna eat the dinner at the end. You gave us all the ingredients. You set the table. Just let us eat. You don't have to be like, but it was actually all a fake meal, and the truth is under the seats or whatever. I don't know. Like what I'm trying to say is like it got very convoluted at the end as far as like that weird insert shot, and then just like there was some lazy shots that I saw. There's this one shot, man, I gotta talk about. There's fire because Cropsey has got this like blowtorch that he's gonna start using because like if you are afraid of something, make it your weapon sort of thing. So Cropsey's obviously dealing with his trauma very well. But he's got a blowtorch, he's walking around with it, and they do this thing where it's like, the waves of fire when they like when you get like that sort of like when you look at a mirage and you see like those heat waves, when you see heat waves. So they got like something like that in front of the camera, but a lot of like the actual flames are bleeding into the camera. And Todd just does this GQ on the cover, drenched in sweat, mouth open, eye squinted. Lance is killing it right now with it. And that shot, they were like, I don't know if they lost money to the guy who played Todd or something or whatever, but that shot was recycled for the last 15 minutes of that of this movie. Just oh, what's going on? Oh, he's hitting the blue steel. He's hitting the red steel. Exactly. Oh my God, y'all, if you're not watching this, you need to watch this episode because Lance nailed it. It is absolutely that. And I'm just like, okay, dude, we get it. You're hot and you're hot. I get it. You're hot because it's hot. And anyway, but I'm like, when did you have time to pose for all this stuff while Alfred has just been gagged and is being cut by these garden shears? Oh, hold on. I actually didn't really care about Alfred. I just care about hitting this shot right here.
Yeah.
What's going on? Who is that? Okay, great. Now he turned into Freddie Prinze Jr.
Don't forget to listen to our last 2 episodes about Freddie Prinze Jr. What's really awkward about the scene is that apparently he doesn't even actually see. They're repeating 2 shots basically, and it's Todd's blue steel. They're repeating the shot 3 times, and they're repeating the shot of Cropsey not being revealed quite. You can kind of see his face, but there's like planks of wood, to the side of him, so you can't quite see him yet. They're replaying that shot, and Cropsey's got the fire, but then it's like the fire goes out, and Todd's like, "Well, I don't know what that was." It's like he's not actually looking at it. If you watch like the sequence, it's like he hears it, but he doesn't actually see it. But the way it's shot, it's like they're looking at each other. It's so bizarre. And it's like, obviously these are new filmmakers all across the board. I believe the director came from music videos, and that's what I thought this felt like at the end. Was there's a lot of shots, and I'm like, this is like how a music video always looks. You don't really need to totally tell a story. You just start throwing like cool images in with music, because the music is the main thing. So it doesn't really make sense at the end, because then he's like, oh, I guess I'll go over here now. And there's no interaction between him and Cropsey in this moment, but it's just bizarre. It's so weird.
Yeah, the director's Tony Malum, and I just looked at his credits, and really, for me, all that is of note is the burning. But yeah, I just think that Alfred was just kind of the pick. I don't think it kind of felt like we were going to be paid off with, oh, the reason that Alfred is being singled out and is run down by Cropsey and, kind of like gagged and stuff like that and kind of tortured, it's going to have some sort of reveal. And it actually didn't. If anything, Cropsey probably should have like maybe taken pity on him. I'm not sure. But besides the fact of all that shit, I didn't give a shit that he was getting kind of tore up, because he's a piece of shit. And, I don't understand. Maybe it's because of the pigs who made the dang film are who they are, that all this bad behavior got rewarded. Todd's asshole behavior got rewarded. Alfred's behavior of being a peeping Tom got rewarded, meaning like, you didn't see some sort of like cathartic, like, oh, but they die in the movie. So it's like, haha, you got your comeuppance,
Right.
For all of Glazer's bullshit and all of his like arrogance and like anger and stuff, he kind of ends up being pretty sweet to the girl. I mean, like, he's aggressive and stuff, but he ends up being a little bit, he's kind of like a false bravado, right? Like he kind of ends up being
At
a little bit
last minute.
at the last minute. Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's a piece of, they're all pieces of shit. The only one that deserved to survive are 2 people, and it's Michelle and Dave, Jason Alexander. And guess what? They did. So there.
Yeah. Again, that's like another realistic thing to this, is like, not everybody died. Not everybody had an interaction with the killer, the slasher in this. Like, there's so many people that actually ended up surviving this, that I thought that was like another interesting thing of, like, they never actually saw the killer. They saw some of the aftermath, and they have to deal with the trauma. But that's such a real world thing to me, where there's always a lot of survivors. There's always a lot of people that like survive this traumatic event. So there's like these weird, like, interesting real world moments in this movie. And that's one of them, where there's a huge group of people that make it, and you're almost kind of surprised,
I guess I also like missed the motive. Not that there has to be. Again, remember, I do talk about how I really don't like motive, because it's scary when there is none. However, when you set up something as deep as the way that this movie started with, it's a revenge tour, essentially. In Friday the 13th, if you're having sex or you are representing anything that led to the reason that Jason died, you are on the chopping block. Okay. His kills kind of seemed random, which is cool to me, but you introduced a very in-depth origin, even in the opening. Does that make sense? Because I was like, you should be killing this person, but that person stayed alive. And why did you actually kill that person? Because like they were pretty much sweet the whole time. Is kind of my hang up of who he picked to kill.
Yeah, no, I get it, but I'm at the end of the day, it's just I feel like that's how a real killer might work this whole situation out. It's like I'll get whoever I can, you know. So it's like they accidentally made this like real world slasher film, you know. Like, why do those moments stand out? It's because I don't see those in other slasher movies. A lot of times, like, well, best friend just died, guess I'll run over here, you know, got to get away from the killer now. Like, that's just kind of the formula, and that maybe The Burning just doesn't really follow that formula. Maybe that's why it's different. Maybe that's why it's got, and again, that raft scene just stands out.
Yeah, it's that scene is the scene of the movie. But we're pretty much here. We're at the end. It's revealed after Todd stops inhaling all of everyone's air through this blue steel look, because he's just kind of like breathing over and over again. It's revealed Todd is, and we already said it a bunch of times, but Todd was one of the original pranksters who burned Cropsey. Cropsey has now he definitely survived because he, you know, got rehabilitated and escaped. Not escaped, but was released from the hospital. And when I finally see, and when we all finally see the image of Cropsey, I said, oh shit, it's the Toxic Avenger. Right off the bat, I was like, he just kind of like looked that way. Then I was like, or is he the guy that gets melted by the toxic waste in RoboCop? It's a little bit of both, and or the white orc in The Hobbit. The orc is among us. That guy. That's all. It was a little bit of a mix of that, but still very cool looking. Definitely can run away with that as a slasher going forward, but you know, they didn't.
Yeah, very could have been iconic. Again, for no reason at all, he's wearing his burnt shreds, even though the hospital gave him his jacket and fedora. But he's got his shredded, like you can see it every time he pulls up the shears. You can see the burnt shredded jacket or whatever he was wearing. Everything's black. It's a cool look. He's got an iconic thing that was kind of formulated. It was supposed to be that way. No sequel. Cropsey ends up axed in the head, very bloody and burned. So no more Cropsey, I guess.
But a really cool ending. They go back to the campfire scene. The story's been told again, leaning into that tale as old as time, the urban legend at the campfire. And now the person telling the story has got the same setup and the same delivery as Todd did, and then ends it with, the don't move, he'll see you. Don't breathe, he'll hear you. I forget what I'm messing it up. Hold on. It's don't look, he'll see you. Don't move, he'll hear you. And don't breathe, you're dead. Right? I guess. Whatever. But when he delivers those lines, the final one is straight to the camera, to the audience, as if to say, you were all just listening to an amazing campfire story, is the way I took it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that we were always just around the campfire listening to this terrible story. So it played out in detail. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. Cause it's a totally different cast of people around the fire. It's, you know, all new people you've never seen before. So, and the story I think is tweaked even a little bit from the first campfire scene that we had seen. So it is a fun way to end the film at the end of it. Again, the original title is like the Cropsey Killer or the Cropsey Maniac, or, you know, supposed to tap into the urban legend for the tri-state area. So the fact that it ended up becoming The Burning was just maybe at a marketing call or something, but
I mean, it does have a ring to it, The Burning. I do like that a lot more.
Yeah, no, I do too. And maybe marketing did their job, you know, because in California, we don't have the Cropsey legend, you know, that's a New York thing. And it's a huge thing, you know, it's still to this day. There's a huge thing behind that. So go down that rabbit hole, Danny.
Yeah,
After this.
I mean, no, I mean it's creepy, and then you got the Jersey Devil, and you got these, the Ozark Howler. That's not that side, but I'm basically going over the horrified board game American Monsters version. So whatever.
Nice.
That's a great game, by the way.
All right, Danny. How many cheers do you give The Burning?
I don't want to think about this too much because I just kind of want to go with my gut reactions for these. And I do enjoy it. It's definitely a rewatch. And I guess it's always going to be part of my summer list. So I'm going to give The Burning a very solid 3 garden cheers.
3 sounds good to me as well. I will give it a 3. I thought going into this, I'll give it a 4. And I kind of peeled back on it. Like, again, it is a classic. I do believe that there is a cult following for it for a reason. There are some really interesting moments. It surprised me of what I picked up on it this time around, so I'm happy with that. But 3s across the board. The garden shears are out. Got anything else in closing?
I think the last thing I'll say is simplicity is always going to be the best bet for any slasher movie. I think for me, that's what's going to always resonate and why I would want to revisit something a little bit later. I think if you go too much into a backstory, it loses its, you only get the twist of a movie. Like you only get the twist of the Sixth Sense once, and it kind of like, it's not a rewatch because you're like, oh, I already know the twist is coming. Maybe that's a bad example because it's actually a pretty good movie. But that's all I'm going to say is that I think if you keep it simple, it makes for a very great, fun slasher movie.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. All right. That's Danny, and I'm Lance reminding you to
lock your doors,
bolt your windows,
and don't look. He'll see you. Don't breathe. He'll hear you. Don't move. You're dead.
And join us next time in our Slasher's Paradise.
Hey, we got the Ringling Brothers over here. Yeah, what are you, a wise guy? Hey, did you see anything you like?
Thanks for watching Slasher's Paradise tonight. Please hit the like and subscribe button and turn on all of your notifications so you know the next time we post a video or go live.
And if you'd like an audio-only version of the show, search for us on wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. We're on all the platforms. We just ask that you leave a rate and review of 5 stars. And if you don't know what to write in the review section, put a recommendation of a horror movie you would love for Lance and I to talk about.
Yes, and if you'd like to get the full experience of Slasher's Paradise, including videos and audio all together, go to deadcandy.com, that's DEDCANDY, or go to youtube.com/deadcandy. Here's to you guys.
This is Slasher's Paradise! Sorry, I had to work that in.
And I'm going to drink on that.
Blended Canadian.